colleague, the senior senator from the state of Tennessee. I'd love to get her thoughts on what happened today.
Thank you so much to the senator from Utah for organizing this. You know, Madam President, I think it is so important for the American people to really understand what did happen here today. And what we saw happen here today is a violation of our oath, the oath that we take, that we are going to abide by the Constitution. Now, those who are watching this, and I would encourage all of my colleagues among us to pull out that Constitution and read Article 1, Section 2, which lays out the process of impeachment for the House of Representatives. And then Section 3 of that Constitution lays out the duty of the Senate in that Constitution. Now, I have a poster up here from 2019. It is Chuck Schumer. This was during the Trump impeachment in 2019. Now, Chuck Schumer, who's currently the majority leader, basically made a full-time job of talking about how the Senate had to do their constitutional duty to hold a trial. That's all he talked about for days. The clips are all over the internet. One thing he repeatedly said, we have a responsibility to let the facts come out. A responsibility. Now, we have to say what has changed between 2019, 2020, and today. Well, of course, we know what changed for Chuck Schumer because he's desperate to hold on to the majority in this House. And he did not want some of the senators who are highly contested in their races to have to take a vote on the Mayorkas impeachment. Why is that, Madam President? It is because the number one issue with the American people is that open southern border. And who is it that has regularly lied to this chamber, to the House, and to the American people about what's going on at the southern border? It is Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Repeatedly lied, repeatedly stood before the American people, stood before us in hearings and committees and said, the border is secure. Anyone who is watching, anyone who's ever been to that border, knows the border is not secure. They know that on the Mexico side of that border, it is being run by the cartels. You can spend an hour with the Border Patrol, and you will find out. Last year, there were people from 170 different countries that came to that southern border seeking entry. Not a one of them got here on their own. They get flown to Mexico, they pay the cartels, and the cartels bring them over. The cartels are making a fortune. We are paying the price. And we're paying this price because of the dereliction of duty carried out by Secretary Mayorkas. The way he's not standing up for the Border Patrol, the way he's not standing up for the American people, that is an issue. And yes, a responsibility. Did we have that responsibility? You bet we do. And that is why we are here on this floor to talk about this. Because our border, when you look at the drugs, the fentanyl that are coming across that border and moving into communities across this state, this country, every state, a border state, every town, a border town, every single family affected are worried about the consequences of the border. thousands of Americans dead from fentanyl poisoning, other Americans that have become angel parents because their children, their spouses have been killed in auto accidents by criminal, illegal aliens. What they have done to this country by opening that border, and you know the sad thing about this, it is very intentional. This is their border policy. They intend to do this. So looking at the drugs, looking at the crime and the gangs, and then, of course, looking at the human trafficking. On Mayorkas' watch, and Madam President, this is something that is so important for the American people to know. In Tennessee, we have several groups that work on human trafficking and seek to rescue women and girls and children that are being trafficked, sexually trafficked. The exploitation of these children. And we know that is driven by the cartels. The cartels have turned human trafficking in this country from a $500 million a year industry. Over the last 3.5 years, it has become a $13 billion with the B. People are being trafficked. Indeed, children are being used as aids for these traffickers. They're being recycled. And these precious children have their name, they have the contact name and the phone number in indelible ink written on their backs, written on their arms, because the cartel uses these children to get cartel members across the border posing as families. And then, once that cartel member is in the U.S., they turn that child loose, and then the child gets sent back. That is disgusting. But because of Biden and Mayorkas and the open border, that is what is happening. Now, even worse, we have an issue that Secretary Mayorkas claims he knew nothing about, and it was the loss of 85,000 migrant children. Now, we've got 400,000 migrant children that have been turned over to the federal government under Secretary Mayorkas. Out of this, 85,000 of those children cannot be accounted for. We've asked Secretary Becerra, we've asked Secretary Mayorkas, where are these children? They do not know. They do not know if these 85,000 children are dead or alive. They do not know if they've been attached to drug mules or drug traffickers, or if they've been put into gangs, labor crews. What we did find out from some reporters, Madam Secretary, is this. We found out that some of these children were working in slaughterhouses in the night. That's what we found out. And oh, by the way, that was from a New York Times reporter. This situation at the southern border is a humanitarian crisis. The trafficking of human beings is a crisis. Using human beings as chattel, that is a crisis. Putting people into indentured servitude and slavery, that is a crisis. And who has lied about this repeatedly to the Senate, to the House, is Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And who voted for it? Every Democrat on that side of the aisle that refused to let this trial come forward, each and every one. You are responsible for this not coming to light. It is a dereliction of your constitutional duty and a responsibility. Yes, it is a responsibility that we as members have to make certain that the American people know what happened today.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Another great mind we've all benefited from in the Senate is our friend and colleague